So I bid you welcome to another very exciting episode of the Good Listening To podcast. And today we've got the lovely Claire Burnie, who's from Working Voices, which we have in common. Hello, Claire. Welcome.
And like a game show, isn't it? Game show. Hello.
You're doing very well so far. And what we're going to be doing is using some lovely storytelling archetypes, where the intention of the podcast is to bring my guests, Claire Burnie, into a clearing, which will be a clearing of her choice. Then there are some lovely storytelling archetypes of a tree where we shake it to see which apples fall out. And in a nutshell, you're here to tell your story, amplify your brand, and also this will amplify the nature and personality of the Working Voices trainers that we are, and that is our commonality as well. Then there's also other storytelling archetypes. There's some alchemy and some gold about what you, Claire, do when you're in flow and in purpose. And then I'll award you with a cake at the end of this conversation.
Lovely.
Boom. So first question, how's morale? How are you today?
Yeah, good. We're in the process of moving home at the minute, so I'm sort of in and amongst a number of boxes, but yeah, we're good. Life is good. Sunny in lovely Wokingham, and yeah, all happy.
So you're in boxes, but about to unpack the box.
Yeah. See, I see what I did there. Unconsciously.
Let's unpack your box by bringing you. And by the way, I love using analogy and metaphors, so this is great. I know that sales is your particular strength, bag, and expertise. Would you think that was a fair summation?
Yeah, it's something that I've done. I mean, I kind of fell out of school not really knowing what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I found myself in a sales job, and it was just something that, you know, understanding people and the psychology of how they operate, it was just something that fascinated me and something that I had a bit of a knack for. So yeah, naturally fell into it, really.
And I love that expression, I fell out of school.
I fell out of school, yeah, a bit lost, not knowing what I wanted to do. But yeah, kind of sales found me. It was something that I was passionate about.
Yeah. And by the way, I Googled you because I could before we spoke to each other today. And on your Working Voices profile, I noticed it said one of the things you do is you're famous for giving a 1,700% return on investment.
Yeah.
So the comedian in me thinks that if I invest £1 in terms of, you know, so basically you'll end up sending me £1,700.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, sounds good.
More delighted to speak to you, if I may say. So let's get cracking with the storytelling archetype. So what does a clearing look like to you? Where does Claire Burnie go to get invigorated, freshly landscaped, you know, so you can, so that's a weird expression, freshly landscaping you, but where do you go to get clutter-free and innovative?
I think for me, it's really interesting. I was giving this question some thought, and I am a prolific doodler and writer. I have notepads, and in amongst my boxes, I came across probably about 20 of these pucker pads, and literally, and they're all recyclable, by the way, so, you know, environmentally friendly and all that.
I love the integration of pucker pads, and I love the fact
pucker pads, yeah,
recycling for the planet.
Project book, you know, I mean, I've got so many of them, and that's where I go for my clearing, just having a blank piece of paper and just to sort of empty my thoughts, really. I mean, I read some of these notes and don't always make sense of them. What was I thinking there? But it's just, it helps me to get my thoughts on paper and to sort of externalize them, really. And I don't know if you remember, Chris, do you remember when the whole lockdown situation happened? We had a Working Voices virtual meeting, and I remember you specifically saying, admiring my flip chart paper at the back there. Yeah. And this has now become my giant doodle pad at home. Okay. So yeah, it really helps. It really helps.
You inspired me to get my own sort
Yay! There you go.
I sort of whipped one the screen, but you inspired me to do that because we were all missing the sort of being live and in person, weren't we?
Yeah, it's almost like trying to recreate the classroom environment virtually, and that was just, you know, I love a flip chart. I feel it's like my anchor, my sort of security blanket. So bringing that into the home environment, I think, has really, really helped.
In fact, one of my own quirks with flip charts is when I'm training in a room, I need to write my name on it. And other trainers have said, what are you doing that for? But it's a bit like the metaphorical, it's making it territorial. So rather than having a sort of we in each corner, which could be one choice, I invariably just need to stamp the fact that I'm in this room, and then you make it yours, and then people join you in your space. Then it's your environment.
Love that. Yeah.
So I love the fact that you're a doodler and an externalizer, and getting your ideas out of your head and onto paper is where you go for your clearing.
Yeah, and this could be at any time of the day, Chris. I've got a notepad by the side of my bed, and sometimes I'll have thoughts, creative ideas at the most obscure time of the evening. So I just find that if I have that notepad and pen, if I do suddenly get a thought, 2 o'clock in the morning, I can capture it down and then go back to sleep again, so it doesn't interrupt my thoughts. So yeah, I have notepads everywhere in the house, really.
I relate to that really well as well. I've had such weird sleep rhythms over the pandemic, and normally 4 o'clock in the morning are my very creative, but also the next day quite expensive times to have your genius thoughts.
Yeah.
You're in good company. Apparently Sting, back in the day, I don't know if you remember this story, but he dreamed every breath you take, wake up, dumped it onto a bit of paper, and of course the rest is history.
Wow.
I think sometimes, a bit like in the dreamscape, in the sort of twilight zone of existential angst, wibble, waking up, it's really good to tune into your own rhythms.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good. So with your permission, then I'm going to join you in your clearing on your metaphorical doodle pad.
Perfect.
And within your clearing now, let's think about drawing a tree together, where we're going to shake your tree in the clearing to see which story apples fall out. And the storytelling exercise that we have agreed that you've thought about, that's the only preparation you had to do. It's where you've had 5 minutes to think about 4 things that inspire you. Sorry, 4 things that shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that really never fail to grab your attention, and then 1 quirky or unusual fact about you, Claire Burnie, that we couldn't possibly know until you decide to tell us. So it's your tree to shake. Which one of those apples would you first like to talk about?
I think the one that really resonated the most with me, Chris, is the what shaped me. And whenever I sort of think about sort of who I am today, I always go back to my mum. My mum is an incredibly strong, independent woman, really. You know, she married my dad at a young age, and my dad was in the military. So my mum had to adapt really quickly to that life. We moved around from country to country as kids growing up. And my mum just got on with it. You know, she never moaned. She brought up 3 kids sort of a lot of the time single-handedly. You know, she had to be the fun parent, but also had to be the disciplinarian because my dad wasn't there. And yeah, just and she was a nurse as well, so you know, holding down a really tough, gritty job, and bringing up 3 kids alone, you know, that sort of independent driver and being able to stand on your own 2 feet is something that I think is definitely a value that I hold really dearly to my heart, and I think that comes from my mum. That's shaped by her.
There's a lovely irony there that your father's in the military and yet your mum was the disciplinarian.
Yeah, I know. Crazy, right? Crazy.
And so where do you position in your siblings? Are you the youngest, oldest? Where do you fit?
I was the youngest, yeah. So I've got an older brother, Darren, and I've got an older sister, Nikki. So yeah, I was the baby of the family, but just, you know, we had the best childhood. You know, although we moved around a lot, and you know, there's a certain level of adjustment. My mum always made sure that we kind of never wanted for anything, and we all got to go to my brother got to his karate club, I'd go to my dancing club, and you know, all these things. And I admire that sort of that ability to be independent and kind of look after yourself, but also sort of be responsible, as my mum was.
Yes. And what countries did your father's job take you to?
So we spent a lot of time in Spain. We lived in Scotland. We've obviously lived in various different parts in England. So kind of a lot of places within the UK, but predominantly Spain was where we were based for a number of years in Gibraltar. So I say Spain, but it's almost like the mini England with a bit of sun. So
yeah, lovely.
yeah.
And your accent, where are you from originally? I won't just guess, just tell us where you're from originally.
Originally from Scotland, believe it or not. I have zero Scottish accent, but if you speak to my my mum and my dad, they're really broad. Particularly my mum, she's never lost her accent. But yeah, I'm definitely the one it's faded the most with.
Because ironically, you've ended up sounding a bit like you're north of England somewhere, not
Yeah.
necessarily approaching Scotland, but your accent's you're converging down towards the southeast. But
Yeah.
I would guess somewhere like, I suppose, Yorkshire, Lancashire, somewhere like that. But
do you know what? Weirdly, and I think that was probably as a result. I lived in Manchester for sort of 3.5 to 4 years. So perhaps that little twang, that little Manc twang, is kicking in somewhere along the lines.
Love the expression, Manc twang.
Twang.
And by the way, that resonates really well in my life. I grew up in Uganda until I was 10 years old, and then my parents then came back to the UK and moved around quite a lot. And we converge to fit in, don't we? If you move around a lot, your accent can evolve or ebb and flow, and your dialect changes slightly.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I think it's not the easiest of life, military life, when you're sort of a kid. You meet your friends and they're your world, and then all of a sudden you're up in sticks and you're moving again. So it's tough, but I think it builds a sort of level of tenacity in you, and a bit of resilience, that, you know, and adaptability as well. So I think that's why I quite like going to new places and experiencing, you know, new people, new environments, because, you know, I've just grown up with it, really.
I was absolutely thinking of the word resilience as you were talking. There's that lovely spin on the Darwin quote of the survival of the fittest. In the modern times, it's much more about the most adaptive and responsive that are going to survive. And so resilience and adaptability is something that you have very much in your capability, it would seem.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, though, I had to really kind of dig deep to find that. I moved to Manchester, as you know, and it was really kind of spawn out of lots of things. It just had a really crappy year. It's probably the only way I could describe it. It was I'd split up from a very serious relationship. I was due to marry this person, and I just wanted to escape. I wanted a new environment, new horizon. So I took myself off to Manchester, and I was, you know, originally really excited about it, but things started to go wrong quite quickly. So work started to dry up. I was skint. I didn't know anyone. Felt really quite isolated, and I was just having a bit of a rough time, really. And I remember it was a really small thing, but I ended up getting a parking ticket. Now, a parking ticket's not the end of the world by any means, but when you're kind of low, it's almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I remember just being in this mess. But as I was sifting through the sort of same post, I came across a little sort of handwritten envelope, and it was from my mum. And I got the card with me because it's something that stays with me. And she wrote a card with me, and it says, the card, I don't know if you can see.
If you can dream it, you can achieve it.
Yeah, and she just wrote this beautiful, like, really personalized message inside about, you know that I'm resilient, and I'm, you know, not to lose sight of that and remember that. And it just, honestly, it chokes me up seeing this card, because it takes me back to my mum, and remembering that my mum's been that resilient person. It was clarity. I needed that from mum. I needed that to kind of get me out of this little hole that I was in. So I
love that. The idea of the pain of the parking ticket, the yin and the yang of the parking ticket, and the same postal delivery has beautiful handwritten, "This is you, Claire, you've got this," to sort of nudge you towards your future, reframe things for you.
100%. And it gave me the clarity that I needed. And you know, and it sort of, they say think good luck happens in three, you know, and it absolutely did. It was almost like a domino effect once I kind of changed my mindset and sort of got out, I don't want to say pity party, but got out of that kind of negative frame of mind. Good things started to happen. Work started to pick up. I started to meet more people. I loved Manchester to the point I didn't want to leave it. So it, you know, it was a kind of massive, difficult year at the time, but just something that has massively shaped, I think, who I am today.
I love that story, and I'm able to resonate. There's something I've got in my house, which is a poster where I was having a really, really, really rocky time. And I'd been really having to go really out on the outer limb and still being with the people that were causing me the pain. Yeah. But came back home and work was about to really change. And in fact, it was around about the time we got going with Working Voices. But there's a poster in my house to this day, because I got back home and my wife had put a poster on the wall which says, work hard and be nice to people. And she said, that's you, that is. And I was like, ah, who? Every now and again, you can get something iconic. And your mum's thing made me think about, you know, what's meant for you won't pass you by. Yeah. And your mum's timing there as a parent, and that wonderful, just beautiful moment of just clarity and timing and just the right nudge is just a beautiful story.
Yeah, it's instinctive with mum. She, you know, she lives up in the northeast in Newcastle, and it's almost it's just like she knew that I'd kind of was at that, you know, real down phase. And yeah, beautiful. And I've got a little sort of memory box in my house, and you know, that's firmly placed there. So
lovely. And just to recap what it says, because we're going to release this obviously as a podcast, just tell us what the card says again.
So it's, if you can dream it, you can achieve it.
A perfectly timed nudge from your mum, and presumably you've told your mum that, hey, thanks, that was good timing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you know, she's like my life coach, really, you know, unconsciously. She's the person that I go to when, you know, I need advice or support. And I probably perhaps need to tell her more, because I think she's strong, independent. She might not always, maybe I need to give that feedback more frequently, but she's definitely an incredible woman.
Beautiful. Anything else you want to tell us about the apple tree? We can go to what inspires you, or a quirky fact. You know, you can go where you like.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, you know, inspires me, and you probably will have, it kind of feeds into the sort of the story that we were talking about, is just sort of authenticity for me, and being real. I think we're very lucky to work with people in sort of in these big corporate environments. And I think, you know, when they come into that sort of training environment, like you say, you know, your environment, you're inviting them in. Often we find that people just have this corporate mask on. You know, it's you're meeting a kind of version of them, the transactional version of them. And what I just love, and I'm really privileged to be able to do this as a job, is chipping away at people's kind of resistance to get that mask down. And when you've got it, and you've got that level of trust between them and you, that's where the magic really happens for me. And that's why I do kind of what I do. It's the, you know, getting people to become the best versions of the real them. You know, that's what I'm sort of passionate about, and that's what inspires me when I've got that.
By the way, that's such a lovely segue into the alchemy and gold that I'd like to talk about. You're giving us this in spades anyway. I can see the gold in front of you. But is there anything, when you are in purpose and in flow, what does Claire Burnie most enjoy bringing?
Yeah, I think it's that level of trust where you connect to another person in an environment where they just feel completely safe to be totally and utterly vulnerable without judgment. And I think that only happens when that corporate mask goes down. That only happens when when you truly connect with people on a sort of authentic level rather than that transactional level. And that for me that's the fire in my belly. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
And of itself, that's the wonderful evocation of using somebody external to your normal job role, because someone can come in super objectively and just get a little bit under your mask and sort of nudge at you without any other agenda than helping you get to a clearer place about who you truly are.
Yeah.
So I love that. Quirky or unusual fact before I award you with a cake, Claire Burnie?
Okay. So a quirky fact about me, I nearly had a career as an Irish dancer. So
Whoa!
there you go. Yeah.
More, please.
Yeah. So growing up, as I said, my mum was she'd be taking us to all of our clubs, and I used to love dancing. That was my thing. And I chose Irish dancing purely because of the dresses. I loved the outfits that they wore. There was no other reason. We went through all of the different styles of dancing, and my mum told me what they wore. And Irish dancing was the outfit that most gravitated to. But yeah, I did it for years, and I did it when we were in Spain. I did it when we were in Scotland. When we moved down south, I continued to do it. And I was it was at the point of, I was at school, and yeah, it was a kind of choice about, do I continue with dancing and take it sort of down the professional route, or do I kind of work? So it was a tough balance. I would like to get back into it. It's not something. It's a party trick. After a couple of drinks, that's when it generally appears as my Irish dancing. But yeah, it's a passion.
It's an opportunity. When we were in Abu Dhabi together and we were having quite a nice time with Working Voices, working for a lots of opportunities to sort of have a real gas. And next time I'll know.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, we've got a kind of budding Michael Flatley in our midst.
Love that. And I'm presuming it was the dresses that attracted him too.
Yeah, there you go. You never know.
And I have to ask, do you still flex your dancing muscles to this day then as much as you might like?
Not so much, no. I must admit, it's definitely something that I would like to get back into. And I think, certainly once we're back in our new place, that's definitely something that I would like to pursue. But it's something that I've got so many fond memories. My mum driving around, taking us to competitions and sitting in freezing cold halls, like village halls, and hours watching girls get up on stage and compete for medals. And my mum just sitting there with her flask of tea and just watching the hours go by. So yeah, it's a fond memory, but definitely something I like to get back into, but not
your mum is just the most awesome recurring, she's got your back presence in your life.
She really is. Yeah. She's an incredible person. As I said, bringing up 3 kids solo. Well, not solo. My dad's still around, but I think that what was really interesting seeing that dynamic. Dad would come in after being away on leave and be the fun parent, and mum had to still continue with normal life, and that's where I think that kind of level of responsibility and accountability, I think that's definitely in my personality a little bit, being responsible at times when you need to be. That definitely comes from her, not Dad.
Wonderful. And if I may, I'd like to award you, and thank you so much, by the way, this is really full of alchemy and gold, and I'm loving what you're talking about. It's really resonant and beautiful. We're going to award you with a metaphorical cake now, Miss Claire Burnie.
Nice.
And your opportunity now is to put a cherry on the cake, which is, and you can go where you like with this as well. It's a choice of, the best advice you've ever been given, although you might have already implied that with your mum, but that's fine. Yeah. A favourite inspirational quote, or something like what best advice you'd give to a younger version of yourself. It's sort of up to you to interpret, but what would the cherry on the cake be that you'd like to leave us with?
I think it kind of very similar to this quote on the card from Mum, but it really resonated with me. I remember seeing a quote I think it was just on Google. It wasn't anything profound, but it said, but it came at a time when I was in Manchester having this difficult year. And it says, after the storm comes the rainbow. And I love that. I just think it's that ability to, know that, yes, there will be stormy times, and yes, we're going through them right now, with this whole COVID situation, but it will get good again, and just have faith that it will turn around. I think that's something that I try and hold on to.
Wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to say or add, the lovely Claire Burnie?
No, just thank you, Chris. This is it's just nice to talk and connect. People at Working Voices, we've got this tribe where we're such different personalities, but there's a commonality that brings us all together. So it's been awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So you've been listening to the Good Listening To podcast with me, Chris Grimes, and this has been the lovely Claire Burnie. And by the way, I just have to land the slight comic thing. In my family, we've got this comic thing going on where we keep saying, "Hi, Chris, it's Burnie." And I know your surname is Burnie, but it's because back in the day, this lovely chap who's still out there called Barney Curtis, I think he's called. But he would always ring me up and go, "Hi, Chris, it's Burnie." and so whenever we hear the word Burnie, randomly my daughter can ring me up sometimes and say, "Hi Chris, it's Burnie," because we just used to like the fact that you'll forever be even more important because you've got the right surname.
Yeah. Well, my nickname is Burnie, so let's go with that. That's it. That's sticking now.
You can take the mickey out of my surname if you want to. But listen, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much indeed, and good night.